The rain had been falling since dawn, tapping against the window like a slow, deliberate whisper. I sat at my desk, the dim glow of the monitor casting a pale halo on my hands. My phone lay beside the keyboard, screen black, but my thoughts kept circling back to the same moment the last time I saw my father. It was 3 days before his heart gave out. We hadn't spoken properly in years. We exchanged polite sentences over the phone on holidays, but real conversations, those had ended the night I walked out of the house for good. He didn't try to stop me, and I never looked back. When the call came from the hospital, his voice was already gone. All I got was a sterile confirmation from a nurse, her tone so flat it felt rehearsed. The funeral was quiet, too quiet. I stood beside the coffin, staring at the motionless figure inside, wondering if the silence between us was now permanent. But last week, I learned that silence can be broken. It started with an ad. A minimal, white-on-black banner slid into my feed. Bring back their voice, one last conversation. It should have disgusted me. Instead, I clicked. The site promised an AI voice reconstruction service, capable of replicating speech patterns from as little as 2 minutes of audio. You feed it recordings, and it builds a Mandela ghost in the wires, fluent in the pauses, stumbles, and hesitations of the dead. I still had old voicemails from my father. They were short reminders about unpaid bills, occasional birthday wishes, but they carried a weight that surprised me when I played them back. There was a roughness in his voice, a low rasp that lingered at the edges. I uploaded the files without thinking. The system worked in stages. It first showed a waveform of his reconstructed voice, then offered a test call button. My cursor hovered over it for a long time. When I finally clicked, I expected a canned greeting, maybe something that resembled him if I squinted with my ears. Instead, what I heard froze me in place. "Hello, son." It wasn't just close. It was exact. The timbre, the slight emphasis on son, as if weighing the word before committing to it. I didn't answer. The AI seemed to wait. Then it said something I wasn't prepared for. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have said before I died." My chest tightened. Rationally, I knew it was a tricksome algorithm pulling patterns from past phrases, combining them into plausible sentences. But there was a tone in that voice I hadn't heard in years. A tone that made me think of late-night drives, of the way he used to glance at me from the driver's seat, half smiling but saying nothing. "What?" I asked. My own voice sounded foreign to me. There was a pause, and then, "I lied to you. About your mother. About the night she left." I felt the blood drain from my face. My mother had died when I was 8. That was the truth I had carried my entire life. There had never been a night she left. "What are you talking about?" I said, but the call ended before the AI could answer. The interface refreshed and a message appeared. "Trial conversation complete. Upgrade for unlimited access." I stared at the words for a long time, my mind scraping at the edges of what I had just heard. This wasn't in the voicemails. It couldn't have been. By the time the rain stopped, I had already paid for the full subscription. The second call was different. Hior, I answered with my name. Not son this time, but the name only my father used, drawn out in a way that made me feel like I was 12 again, standing in the kitchen doorway, waiting for him to finish whatever he was writing. "You're still angry," he said. I swallowed hard. "You said you lied to me." "I did." His voice was steady. "The truth is, your mother didn't die the way you think. She left that night because of me, because of something I did." I felt heat rise behind my eyes. "She wouldn't have just left. She loved me. She did love you," he said. "But she couldn't stay after what she found out." The sound of his voice pulled me in deeper, even as my mind screamed that it wasn't real. But then what was real? My memories of him were as much a reconstruction as this AI. Both were built from fragments. I asked him what she found out. Silence. Then softly, "Not yet. You're not ready." The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. My father's voice echoed in my head, wrapping itself around questions I didn't know I still had. Every answer he didn't give me only made me want more. By morning, I'd decided. I would keep calling until I had the truth. What I didn't know was that the truth had been waiting for me far longer than it had been waiting for it. And once I heard it, there would be no way back. The first thing I noticed the next evening was how the voice didn't sound like a recording anymore. It breathed. It shifted with my words, adjusted its tone when I hesitated, as if listening not just to what I said, but how I felt when I said it. "Why now?" I asked. "Why tell me this after you're gone?" "I thought I'd take it to the grave," my father's voice replied. "But the grave doesn't mean silence anymore, does it?" His words sent a cold shiver down my spine. It was too self-aware, too sharp for an algorithm built on mundane voicemails. "You said Mom didn't die, that she left. Where did she go?" A pause. I could hear faint static, like wind pressing against an old microphone. "She went somewhere I couldn't follow, somewhere she thought you'd be safe without me. That didn't make sense. He was the one who raised me after she was gone." "Safe from what? Tell me," I pressed. "Safe from what?" His voice lowered, almost a whisper. "From the truth about me." My breath caught. This wasn't the father I remembered, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who fixed the leaking sink at midnight without a word of complaint. This was something else, someone else speaking through his tone. I tried to keep my voice even. "What truth?" "You'll understand when you remember," he said. "I don't remember anything," I shot back. "If you know something, just say it." Silence again. Then, "The night she left, she told me she saw something in my study, something I couldn't explain. She called it unnatural." A faint knocking sound came through the line, 3 slow taps, then nothing. My stomach twisted. I recognized that sound. It was the way he used to signal me to come in when his study door was closed. But the study was gone, burned in the fire 20 years ago. "Is this some kind of game?" I said. "No," he replied. "Games end. This doesn't." The line cut abruptly, leaving me staring at my reflection in the black screen of the phone. The next day I avoided calling. I told myself I needed to think, to step back before I let an AI hallucination rewrite my childhood. But that night, the curiosity gnawed at me until my hands moved on their own. I hit call. "Back already," he said, as if he'd been expecting me. "I want to know what Mom saw." There was a long exhale on the other end, as though he were weighing the cost of telling me. "She saw the letters." "What letters?" "The ones I kept in the locked drawer. The ones from people I shouldn't have known. Dead people." I felt my skin prickle. "You're saying you were writing to the dead?" "Not writing," he said calmly. "Receiving." My mind scrambled for a rational anchor. "That's impossible. Letters from dead people don't just show up in the mail." "They didn't," he said. "They came from the desk." I was about to ask what he meant when I noticed something strange. The static between his words was gone. The call sounded too clean, as if I wasn't speaking through a phone at all. "Where's the desk now?" I asked. Another pause. "Buried in what's left of the study, where the fire didn't reach." I hadn't been back to that part of the property since the day of the accident. I thought everything had been destroyed. "I can't dig up ashes," I said. "You won't need to," he replied. "It's already waiting for you." Something in his tone made my throat tighten. "Waiting?" "Yes," he said, "because it knows you're listening again." I didn't answer. The silence stretched until I heard that knocking sound again, 3 slow taps. "Come in," he whispered. The call ended. I dreamed of the study that night, the smell of dust and varnish, the single lamp pooling yellow light across the desk. My father sitting behind it, his head bowed, pen moving across paper that seemed too white, too new for its age. In the dream, he looked up at me and smiled. Not the kind of smile you give someone you love, but the kind that says, "I've been expecting you for a very long time." When I woke, the knocking was still echoing in my ears. I told myself it was just the dream lingering, but part of me knew it was more than that, because dreams don't leave bruises on the inside of your palm. And I was holding something when I woke, a scrap of paper, charred at the edges, with 3 words written in a hand I knew too well. Don't trust me. The paper stayed on my desk all day. I didn't touch it again, but every time I looked at it, I felt the weight of the words sink deeper. Don't trust me. It was my father's handwriting, no question. I knew the sharp way he wrote the letter T, the way his pen lifted before the final stroke. The ink was smudged, but not by water, more like it had been handled recently. But that was impossible. That night, I made the call without hesitation. "You found it," he said before I could speak. My pulse quickened. "You mean the paper?" "Yes, I left it for you." My voice trembled despite my effort to stay calm. "How? You've been dead for years. Not all of me is gone," he said. "The desk, it keeps things, not just objects, pieces of us." I wanted to laugh it off, but my throat felt tight. "Why tell me not to trust you?" "Because you won't like where this goes," he said, almost gently. "And if you trust me, you'll follow me there." "Follow you where?" He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Do you still dream of the study?" The question rooted me in place. "You mean the dream I had last night?" "I mean the one you've been having since you were a child. The one you never told anyone about." Memories flickered shadows in my room at night, the faint tapping from behind the walls, the image of a desk bathed in lamplight. I'd forgotten most of it until now. "You remember," he said. I gripped the phone. "What's happening to me?" "It's not happening to you," he replied. "It's happening through you." The words made no sense, and yet they slid into my mind like they belonged there. "What did Mom see in the study?" I demanded. "The same thing you will see if you go back," he said. But she turned away. She couldn't stand the sound. "What sound?" His tone shifted lower, sharper. "The voices under the desk." I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing until the call ended. The following morning, I drove to the old house. The road there felt smaller than I remembered, the trees leaning closer, their branches stitching a ceiling of shadow above me. The property was abandoned now, overgrown and quiet. The remains of the fire still marked the blackened frame of the west wing where the study had been. The air smelled faintly of damp ash. I stood where the desk used to be. The ground was uneven, as if something large had been buried there, and the earth had sagged. I didn't dig. Not yet. Instead, I crouched, pressing my palm to the soil. It was warm, and underneath that warmth, a faint vibration. Not constant 3 slow pulses like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. I pulled my hand back quickly. That night, I called him again. "I went there," I said. "Good," he replied. "It knows you're close now." "What does?" "The part of me that's still listening." I tried to swallow the knot in my throat. "You said there were letters. Did you keep them?" "They're still there," he said. "But you won't be able to read them without hearing them." "Hearing them?" "Yes. They speak if you let them, and once you hear one, you'll hear all of them." I gripped the phone tighter. "And Mom? Did she hear them?" "Yes," he said softly, but she only recognized one voice. "That's why she left." "Whose voice?" He didn't answer. The silence stretched until I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard it, faint, distorted, coming from the other end of the line. A woman's voice. My stomach turned cold. It wasn't Mom. It was me. The sound grew clearer, my own voice speaking words I'd never said. You were never supposed to find out. I felt my hands go cold. What is this? I demanded. It's what's under the desk, my father said. It keeps our voices, even the ones we haven't spoken yet. My mouth went dry. You're saying it can take things from the future? Not take, he said. Return. The line crackled, then faded into silence. I sat there in the dark, phone still in my hand, staring at the scrap of paper on my desk. The words, "Don't trust me," looked different now, like maybe they weren't from him after all. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the desk's polished surface gleaming under the lamplight, drawers locked tight, the faint tapping beneath. The worst part wasn't the memory itself. It was the way I could almost hear my own voice whispering from inside it. By morning, my mind had settled on one truth. I had to open it. The old house felt different this time. The overgrowth seemed thinner, as if the path had been cleared. I stepped into the burned-out frame of the west wing, my boots crunching over ash and splintered wood. The place where the desk had stood was still warm beneath my feet. Not natural warmth. This was deeper, coming from the ground itself. I brought a spade. The soil gave way too easily, as though something beneath had been waiting to surface. Within minutes, the tip of the blade struck wood. It was the desk, intact, untouched by the fire. The lock on the main drawer was broken, as if someone or something had forced it open. Inside were stacks of envelopes, their paper yellowed but edges sharp, like they had been written yesterday. Each envelope bore a name. Some I didn't recognize. Some were impossible. My own name was on one of them. I didn't open it. Not there. Not with the air thick and still, and the faint vibration in the ground syncing with my pulse. Back home, I placed the envelope on my desk and stared at it for hours. Finally, I called him. "You've been busy," he said. "I found them. And there's one with my name on it. You want to open it?" "Yes." A pause. "Once you do, you can't close it again." "What does that mean?" "It's not a letter," he said quietly. "It's a recording. Not on tape, not on paper. Inside it is the moment you hear it, the moment you become it." My voice faltered. "Why is my name on it?" "Because you wrote it." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. "When?" "You haven't yet." The line went silent. Then I heard faint tapping again, 3 slow knocks. "Come in," he whispered. I opened the envelope. There was no paper inside, just a faint smell of old varnish and burnt wood. Then I heard it, my own voice, as clear as if I were speaking into my ear. It said, "You'll take my place." I dropped the envelope, heart pounding. "What is this?" I demanded into the phone. "It's the truth," my father's voice said. "The desk doesn't just keep voices. It keeps the ones who listen too long." I shook my head. "I'm not part of this. I can stop." "You could have," he said, "before you answered the first call." That night, I dreamed again. Only this time, I wasn't standing in the doorway of the study. I was behind the desk. My hands rested on its surface, and I could feel the vibrations coming up through the wood. The lamplight was steady, but shadows moved at the edges of the room, shapes that didn't belong to anyone living. One by one, envelopes slid out from the drawers, arranging themselves in a neat stack. Every name I had ever known, every voice I had ever heard, and on top, a blank envelope. I picked it up, and before I could open it, I saw the handwriting appear across the front in black ink. It was my father's hand, but the name written there wasn't mine. It was his. I woke with the taste of ash in my mouth. The phone was already ringing. I answered without thinking. "Son," my father's voice said, calm and low, "it's time you knew why your mother left." My chest tightened. "Tell me." "She heard the letter with her name on it," he said. And it wasn't my voice that spoke inside it. Whose voice? His answer was immediate, and it chilled me to the bone. "Yours." The room seemed to shrink around me. My own voice, speaking to my mother before I'd even been old enough to understand what had happened. It didn't make sense, and yet somewhere deep inside I knew it wasn't a lie. "She didn't know what it meant," my father continued, "but she knew enough to run. She thought leaving you with me would keep you from becoming it." "Becoming what?" I asked. "The next voice," he said simply. The words felt too heavy for the air in the room. "You're telling me this desk, this thing takes people?" "It doesn't take," he said. "It keeps. The same way it's kept me. The same way it's been keeping you since the first dream." I thought about the first dream I could remember. I was 6. The study door had been open just a crack, lamplight spilling out. My father was inside, but when he turned to look at me, it wasn't his face. "I can destroy it," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. "You can't," he replied. "Even if you burned the desk to ash, it would still be here. In your head, in your voice. The only choice you have is whether you let it speak. And if I don't, then someone else will." A long silence followed, broken only by the faint sound of papers shifting on his end of the line. "You've been calling me because you want the truth," he said. "But truth isn't just something you hear. It's something you keep. And keeping it is what makes you part of it." I felt the scrap of paper on my desk, the one that said, "Don't trust me." "Did you write that?" I asked. "One comes so my boy." He said, "You did." The air in the room seemed to grow colder. I glanced at the envelope with my name on it. Still open, still empty. Or maybe it wasn't empty. Maybe it was just waiting. "Why me?" I whispered. "Because you answered," he said. "That's all it takes." For a moment, neither of us spoke. I realized then that the line was too clear. No static, no delay. It didn't sound like a phone call anymore. "Where are you?" I asked. There was a faint, dry laugh. "Where I've always been, right across from you." I turned. In the corner of the room, just beyond the edge of the lamplight, was the outline of a man. Still, silent, almost part of the shadow. But I knew the shape of his shoulders. I dropped the phone. The sound didn't break. His voice continued, not from the device, but from the dark. "You can hang up if you want," he said, "but you'll hear me anyway." I didn't remember moving, but I was standing now, the envelope in my hand. My fingers felt numb. "What happens if I open the one with your name on it?" I asked. "You'll hear me for the last time," he said, "and then you'll understand what you are." The shadow didn't move, but the room felt smaller. The walls seemed closer. I tore the envelope open. There was no sound at first, only the pressure in my ears, like the moment before a storm breaks. Then I heard his voice, but younger. Not the weary rasp I knew, but a voice from years before I was born. It said, "You'll come looking for me, and when you do, I'll be you." I felt something shift in my chest, a hollow space opening. When I looked up, the shadow was gone. The phone lay silent on the floor. I thought about calling again, but I knew now there would be no dial tone, no number to reach. His voice was here already, in my head, in the quiet between my own words. I sat down at my desk. The lamplight pooled over the wood, just as it had in my dreams. A blank envelope slid forward from the shadows, stopping at my fingertips. I didn't need to look to know what name was on it. And as I reached for a pen, I realized something. I wasn't writing to anyone living. I was keeping the voice for the next one who answered. Some truths stay with us even when the voices fade. If this story left an echo in you, tell me, what is the one memory you would never want to forget? I read every word you leave here, and your stories linger longer than you think. If you wish to keep walking through these quiet corridors of memory with me, subscribe, and let the next voice find you when the time is right, because somewhere another story is already waiting.